There was a release of a new film called The Railway Man, and it was the story of a Royal Signals lieutenant called Eric Lomax, who was a bit of a railway buff. He ended up in the Royal Signals in Singapore in 1942 and was captured by the Japanese. He was then jailed, interred in a POW camp, which was Kachanburi, and he was put to work on the Death Railway, so the Burma Railway. He and some other friends with radio experience managed to steal bits and pieces from the Japanese and create a receiving radio. So it wasn't a transmitter, it was just a receiver. Unfortunately, the Japanese got to learn that this existed. They made a search for it and not only found the radio, but found that Eric Lomax, because of his nature, had been drawing a map of the railway. But obviously the Japanese interpret this to be spying. So him and the people that the Japanese guards thought were responsible were taken aside and brutally tortured for the next few months. The main person who was running the interrogation was the interpreter, Tagasi Nagasi. Eventually he got sent to Outram jail, which was even worse, and broke his own legs and got taken back to Changi POW hospital and survived the war. But he did suffer dreadfully from PTSD and divorced from his first wife, and then met his second wife, Patty, who you can see in the picture over here. So Patty tried to get Eric to confront his issues and do something about it. When they were doing that, they realized that Tagasi Nagasi had also survived the war. They started a dialogue. Patty it was who set the wheels in motion, but eventually Nagasi and Lomax started writing to each other and eventually planned to meet on the bridge over the River Kwai. In the film, the ending is very dramatic, but the reality was somewhat different. We were invited to the launch in London, and afterwards I spoke to both Colin Firth and Patty Lomax, who was there, and she said, yeah, it was very good, but she said it wasn't quite as good as the first one, which obviously piqued my interest. I discovered that actually Eric Lomax took a documentary film crew when he went to see Tagasi Nagasi and filmed the whole thing. When Nagasi and Lomax meet, Nagasi asked Lomax if he could touch his arm, and Lomax said, yes, of course. And he said, this is the one we broke when we beat you, isn't it? And that was the most dramatic part of it. And actually, it did help Lomax come to terms with his PTSD, and Lomax and Nagasi eventually became friends.